you go.
In order to rebuild, I like to check to see if there's friction here. On this one, there's a lot of friction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this a little forwards, which will space out the gap that's supposed to be here.
Okay.
So when they're tight, I just...
So you were pulling this direction, just a little bit.
Yep, just a little bit.
Just a little
so that
bit.
way it slides smoothly.
Okay, so that's the first thing you would check.
That's the first thing I generally check.
Okay.
After that, if you're still having problems, I will check to make sure that the gap between this surface and this surface is 0.10 of an inch.
Of an inch?
Inch, I believe that's inches.
So
that's what our gauge is.
My friend is talking about this gap, and it should be about 0.1 inch.
Now, an easy way to test this is with feeler gauges. And you just slide it to make sure that there's a little tiny bit of friction. You don't want it to lift up. You want it to just barely feel that it's there. And back here, this.
So you can go all the way in?
You can go all the way
in.
But I just like to check to see. This back one, it's too low. I can tell. So it doesn't want to go in.
So it's all the way. See, I can go in from here. Now this is what we call a gauge, a feeler gauge. So the thickness is about 0.1 inch. And here we can go in. So that is too low.
So what I'll do for that, loosen these.
So now he's doing the adjustment for that.
You loosen these two first. And then you can see right in here, there's this screw. You loosen that one. And that one.
You lose it.
Lose it. So now it's...
So you can tell.
All the way down. I'll slide this underneath, right up at the very back.
So we put the gauge.
I'll show you where on the surface. I'm sitting it right here.
Okay.
Just a little bit of pressure, because sometimes it will move up with the pressure of the screw.
So not too much pressure, just a little bit.
Just enough to keep it where it's at. So that's nice now.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'll go and do the other side. Same spot. Just gonna press down a little bit. I can already tell I made it too tight there, so Okay. Okay, so that's nice. And we'll go right here. Do the same thing. This is a very important spacing right here. Do the same on the other side. Make sure it's rests on there nicely. Okay.
Okay. So let's see.
And this is our critical space if it's a two head. It's just right here. If it's a four head, I'll try and make it so the whole thing is flush. I didn't quite get it the way I wanted. Okay. So the next thing is I will check to make sure that there's friction on all these wheels, so they don't roll on their own.
So, okay, so there's friction.
There's friction because it wants to move there, and you can see the wheels turn, maybe. I check the back ones too to make sure. Just sort of feel them with your fingers, make sure that that there's some resistance.
Resistance. Should have some resistance.
Now, if there's not, generally it's these two wheels, the one that's here, or this one. So I'll show you how to do this one first.
Okay.
You'll have to take the carriage off. You won't have to disconnect your ties if you have a table to set it on right in front.
Okay.
Okay, so now what we'll do, let's take this off. This one lock washer. It's easiest to tip it like this. Be very careful with this wheel. Do you see the washers on there? There's washers on each side. You don't want to lose those.
So don't lose the washers. The small washers.
Set that in there just to be safe. Now what we're doing is we're adjusting the depth that this shaft sits in this groove. If you can see that.
Yep, look at this groove. So we are adjusting the depth. So I use a file.
Not a completely round. You want a nice flat edge file, like this one.
Flat edge, not round. Okay.
And what I'll do is we'll just take a little bit of the excess.
At the corner.
Right at the corner, right at the edge of it.
Right at the edge.
And do the same thing on all four surfaces. And go very slowly. It's okay to put your wheel back on. Double check, because if you file too far down, you'll have to adjust the wheel on this side too to make it all flush. So now I'm going to keep that dust out of there. And now you can kind of see how we've got some filed surface there. Be very careful not to lose my washers. So the shaft just fits in that groove. And this bracket, if it's curved at all in one direction, you can flip it over so you have more tension. You know, if it's bent like this on this surface, you can flip it over and use the other side. Okay. Now both my washers are in between the plate there, so they're sitting in there smoothly. And all we do is tighten this back up till it's snug, so that way there's no play with that plate. Now, in theory, you should have all of your wheels touching now. This space should all be the same gap. Here, 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 and here. And this should roll nice and smoothly, which I still haven't. Sometimes it just takes a little extra force. You might have to bend it in if you have play like that. Or if it's too stiff and it doesn't move, you might have to pull it out. And we're talking about this angle right here.
This
the
angle.
Teflon tape on it.
This angle.
You just want it very lightly, just to barely kiss the metal, so it's just barely touching.
The back, you mean?
On the back.
On the back.
Okay.
So when you push it out, does it affect this space?
When you push these wheels out, it
No,
can't.
when you
When I
you're
pull
doing,
that? No.
It doesn't.
This, I'm placing my fingers behind this, is the thicker bracket, and I'm putting my thumbs on here, just to give myself some leverage to kind of move it like that, because it's very hard to get the angle right when you take it off and use pliers. So if for any reason after you've went through this process you still have a tough time with plots, or it looks like there's an overlap or a gap, the only other thing I will check is to be sure that all 4 of these are snug. And to go even further, there are 3 more screws underneath these if there are still issues, which there should not be, because these parts don't really wear during use. But if your gapping is still off, you have these 3 screws you can also check, which secure this angled plate to here, and it helps form this curve.
So make sure all these 3 screws are tight, but not too tight.
Not too tight.
Not too tight.
Just if they move a little bit, just snug them up. Oop. There.
Slug means tight, but not too tight.
Okay, thank you. It's very difficult to get those.
Yes.
All these screws are screwing into plastic blocks, so they can strip out if you over tighten them. But we're just making sure that they're sunk down as far as they will. And all those little adjustments should give you a near perfect carriage.
Near perfect. How about this one?
That would be this adjustment, because if they have the old style, they won't have this slot.
I see.
We made this slot later on to compensate for the filing.
I see, I see.
So that should be everything that they need to know.
Okay. So that's the whole complete
the whole
adjustment process. The whole deal.
Preferably do this space last. Last of all things, do
this.
Check this
Do
gap
this last.
last, because see, it's already changed now from adjusting everything else.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it.